You want to play the video first? You started it? You don't use the bathroom? You don't wait till you come back from the bathroom? Whatever.
It's 29 seconds.
Okay.
Then we'll start the video.
Okay. I'll wait till you start it. Let you start it.
Yeah, turn your mic off.
Oh.
And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have 1 mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
Okay. We're back now with Revelation chapter 17. Now, there's going to be 4 parts to this. Not 4 parts today. What is it going to be? What are you laughing at, Andre?
Because Eric was going to do the countdown. Which, just go ahead.
I can't hear it anyway. I can't hear the countdown. You're right there. It don't matter. It don't matter. I got my own countdown. You have an internal countdown. Woo, hearing aids, I need you. So we're going to be getting into Revelation chapter 17. And like I mentioned, it's a huge, it's really pretty similar to the same amount of verses as some of the other chapters. It's only 18 verses, but it's a lot packed in these 18 verses. So I had to break it down into 4 different parts. And today we're just going to be doing part 1. So, this afternoon. So let me just go ahead and have prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we come before you again. We thank you for your grace and for your mercy. We ask you, Yah, that you be with us as we open up this book of Revelation chapter 17. There's a lot in here, and we ask that you help us to discern and understand it. This in your son's name we pray. Amen. Okay. Revelation 17. One reason. And what we're going to do is I'm going to do this the same way you did 16. We're just going to take one verse at a time. Instead of reading all of it and going back, we just take one verse at a time. In this case here. Like I say, it's quite a bit in here. 17 verse 1, we're going to try to break it down to specific words in each one of these verses, identify what they are, what they reference to. And you'll see as we go along here. See if I can get this second one. Hey, Eric. Okay. One reason that we know that Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 and 2, is a different period than Revelation chapter 17. Because Revelation 17:1, you notice that one of the 7 angels that had the 7 vials talked to him and showed him the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. This indicates that Revelation 17 was possibly during the period which happened during the 7 last plagues, most of it. Revelation, in the last plagues, was in Revelation 16. We just did that this morning. Or closer to the end of mercy, before the 7 last plagues. This happens around that time. It's very important. So Revelation 17:1 says, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. So it says one of the 7 angels. So this wording is like the wording in Revelation 6:1 regarding the seals. It says the Lamb opened one of the seals, meaning not a specific order. Not a specific order. In other words, when he picked the seal, it wasn't just, we picked, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That wasn't the same order as what we're reading in chapter 6 of Revelation. The same thing here. One of the 7 angels with a vial. So we don't know whether it was the 4th angel that came down or the 5th angel, whichever one. It's one of those angels. One of them. So one of the angels which had the 7 vials talked with John, meaning the angel that talked to John was not specifically the first, second, third, or fourth, but one of the seven. And we see again in Revelation 21 verse 9, where in there it says something to the effect, and there came unto me one of the seven angels which had the seven vials. One of them, so I don't know which one it was. One of them. Full of the seven last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. So again, it shows that again. One of them. The identification of this angel as one of the angels bearing one of the seven last plagues of chapter 15 of chapter 16. It introduces in 15, but it actually showed the plagues in 16. Implies that the information about to be given to John is related to events that's possibly occurring during the seven last plagues or sometime around there. What do you mean? This relationship is confirmed by the fact that the announced topic of this chapter, the judgment of the great whore, or this verse, takes place under the seventh plague in Revelation 16:19. See, that's the final judgment is there when he comes and destroys it. When he says it is done, that is actually the judgment that's actually going to be pronounced. You have it already said, and then you add it acted upon. He's going to act upon that in Revelation chapter 16, verse 19, where it's the destruction of Babylon that's talked about. And you know that's talking about spiritual Babylon or mystical Babylon. And then it says in that verse, talk with me. The Greek word G3326 translated with, the word with, may be understood to mean accompaniment. In other words, he's accompanying him. The angel is there with them, talking to him. So, in that verse, it says, come hither. That word is G1204, meaning here, come here. Okay? The angel is about to show John judgment, verdict, sentence, decisions regarding the whore he will see in the vision. Remember, he hasn't seen her yet. He's talking to her about it. The word judgment is G2917 here, which tells us the angel is only letting John know about the judgment of a decision. And that decision means the function or the effect, against something or to avenge something or condemnation or that kind of thing. So, Revelation chapter 18, verse 10, that G2920, where it talks about judgment again, the word is crisis or crisis, which means decision for or against justice, especially divine law. And it means accusation, condemnation, damnation. The verdict or sentence is executed mainly in Revelation 18, of course 16, 19 it is, but also in 18 too. This judgment in Revelation 17 appear to happen in three parts. Three parts. Number one, John sees the symbolic vision in verses 3 to 6. He sees the vision. The angel in verse 7 is about to explain the vision to John. And in verse 3, the explanation of the vision is in verse 8 through 18. So part 1 sets forth the crimes of Babylon. And when I say Babylon, I'm talking about mystical Babylon, spiritual Babylon. We know we're not talking about literal Babylon, because literal Babylon was gone away with in the 1st century AD. So we know he ain't talking about that. We're not talking about literal Babylon, we're talking about spiritual Babylon. And this spiritual Babylon and thus constitute heaven's bill of indictment. So in other words, because the way the spiritual Babylon is, the judgment that's come upon it is justifiable. A declaration of why the divine sentence is to be pronounced upon her. Part 2 is preparing John for the explanation of the vision, as I mentioned earlier. Part 3 sets forth the sentence itself and the means by which it is to be executed. Babylon's criminal career reaches a climax under the sixth plague. That's when, remember this morning we talked about how he gathered, remember those three unclean spirits? What was it? The dragon, the beast, and then the false prophet. And then in verse 19 it talks about how they destroyed, divided into three parts, because it was three parts, and it's destroyed in verse 19. That then the islands are divided and everything else. That's because remember he said in verse 17 it was done. So the gathering of the war to get ready for the Armageddon happened in verses 12 to 16, but the actual war occurred in the seventh plague because that's when Yah said it is done. That's when he comes back. That's when he comes back. And these foolish people are doing whatever they're doing. So, Babylon criminal record reaches a climax out of the sixth plague, whereas the sentence decree is executed under the seventh plague. It brings up that word judgment again, G29:19. Root word is G29:17. So accordingly, part one is concerned most particularly with events under the sixth plague, and part three with those under the seventh plague. Thus, chapter 17 is a delineation, or is portraying or describing the final crisis when Satan puts forth his supreme effort to annihilate Yah's people. Revelation 12:17 tells us, in 12:17 it says, you already get an idea what Satan is trying to do in 12:17. It tells you, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. And this woman here is not the woman speaking of in chapter 17. It's the woman that was already spoken of in chapter 1 of this chapter 12. It's the true woman, the true assembly. So it says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with what? The remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yah and have the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach. This is what we're talking about here. They're going against them. And when all the powers of the earth are arrayed against them, and the powers of the earth, which is war against Yahushua, and you'll find that out not today, but in this same chapter, you'll see about the Lamb that fights against them. So again, like I mentioned to you this morning, chapters 16 and 17 and 8, they connect. There's a lot of connectivity in these chapters. That's why, again, I don't want to keep saying it because I'm kind of looking forward to this. We just get a chronology and just lay out all the verses so you can see how they all line up and do messages on each part as we go along. That'd be something in addition to what we already have here. I don't think we can ever stop talking about this because this is something that got to go until he comes back. Okay, so Yah permits Satan and the human agencies, his allies, Revelation 16:16, with him to carry forward to the verge of success their plot to annihilate the saints. See, they're going to eventually, they're going to annihilate the saints. At least they think they are. Remember the story we gave earlier about Esther? In the story of Esther, they thought they were going to annihilate Haman, thought they were going to annihilate the Jews. They had set a date they were going to do that on, and it backfired. Same thing here. Same thing here. They're going to get themselves together to get ready to array against Yah's people, and it's going to be what? The very next plague, it is done. That means they're saved. They're going to be saved then. Listen, none of these plagues are going to happen. Those first 6 plagues, they're going to fall on one side, fall on the other side. But the scriptures, Psalm 91:7-12 say, but it will not come nigh thee. None of these plagues. That's why it's going to be good. Why? Let's ask you a question. Me and my uncle always talk about this all the time. Why in the world do people choose to create it? You know, when you choose Satan, you're choosing to create it, right? He was created as Lucifer. But then, because the iniquity, as Ezekiel 28 says, because iniquity was found in him, now he's the dragon, he's Satan, he's the devil, he's all. Why would you choose to create it and neglected the Creator. Why would we do that? We have to ask ourselves that. Because you know when you're doing these things, that's who you're following. What did the scripture says? That who you serve, you can only serve one master. Either you love one and hate the other one. Can't have both. Either one or the other. If you're walking and doing all these things you ain't got no business doing, obviously that's your master. But if you're trying to be obedient and doing the will of Yah and being obedient, then you're trying to follow this master. It's only two. There is no in between. That's like lukewarmness. There's no in betweenness, okay? Either you're over here or you're over there. If you're over here, you need to get over here. Not get here, you need to get over here. Over here. Bypass all that lukewarmness. Come right on over here. That's what you need to do. So, no wonder why John was filled with amazement as he beheld the climax of the great drama of the mystery of iniquity. Go with me over to the book of Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, and somebody read for me 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Verse 7. Look what it says in verse 7. Somebody read verse 7.
I read.
Actually, whoever it is, read verse 7 through 9. Read both of them.
All right, and it reads 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7 through 9. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way. And then shall the wicked be revealed. That word wicked is capitalized. Be revealed, whom Yahuwah shall consume with his ruach of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders.
See, we know that that's talking about the papacy. See, because in that verse, there's two entities in verse 9. See what it says? Even him. Now, it just got through talking about this mystery of iniquity, and only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Because you go back to verse 3, you'll see that let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, whom opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called Yah, or that is worshipped, so that he as Yah sitteth in the temple of Yah, showing himself that he is Yah. When you go back to verse 9, there's two entities there. It says even him. So him can't be Satan, because it tells you in that verse, even him whom coming is after the workings of Satan. And then that makes sense, right? Because now when you go back to Revelation 13, it lines up. Because when you go to Revelation 13 and you look there in verse 3, it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered at the beast. But look at 4. 4 is the one I want you to see too. It says, and they worship who? The dragon. See, he's the one that's the main one behind the scenes that we don't see right now, physically see. We will eventually. We'll see something like him when he comes up in 1145 of Daniel. Set up his tabernacle there and all this kind of stuff. Oh, he's coming. 2 Corinthians 11, 13, and 15 say he's going to come as an angel of light. So, when you read verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon, who did what? Gave power unto the beast. What beast? The sea beast. Who is the sea beast? The papacy. That's the sea beast. Why is it called the sea beast? Because it came out of people. You remember, you got to go all the way back over to Daniel. Chapter 7, verse 7. You had this dreadful and terrible beast, which was the fourth world ruler. Out of him came 10 horns. Remember that? 10 horns. Then in verse 8 of chapter 7, then there was a little horn that came up. And that little horn took out of the way 3 other horns. And then it says that that little horn spoke things, mighty things against the Most High. So then when you go to verse 11, I call that the transition verse. Now it takes the horn and converts it over to the beast. So by the time you get to chapter 13, now we're no longer talking about a little horn. We're now talking about a sea beast. And it makes sense because we got the scriptures. Yah is so beautiful how he put it together. See, he had to separate that because he couldn't say beast in 13:1 and then go over to verse 11 and say beast again. He separated. One is a sea beast and one is the earth beast. So that means this earth beast over here came out of an unpopulated area, which was the United States. The sea beast came out of people, which was the Roman Empire, out of Rome. So that makes sense. So, again, John was looking here, what he was seeing eventually was the climatic view of the mystery of iniquity, which lasted for 6,000 years, about ready to come to an end. Think about that. It's about ready to come to an end. Satan's been roaming and doing all this thing for 6,000 years. Y'all let him run around and do all the stuff he's been doing, using people, using entities, using kings, using the papers, using everybody, using us. You know, you don't have to be a king to be used. You know, if we're doing the wrong thing and we teaching our children the wrong thing, we just as worse. Or if we're teaching others the wrong things. Either way, it's bad. Okay. So here, still talking about this, go back to Revelation 17. We're still in verse 1 now. It's talking about this great whore. The Greek word, it's funny, the word whore, the Greek word for whore is porn. P-O-R-N-E. Which is G4204, meaning a strumpet or figuratively an idolater or harlot. Okay. The dictionary says a strumpet, calls it a strumpet, means a woman who has many casual sexual encounters or relationships. But figuratively, the children of Israel committed whoredom throughout the old covenant with many heathen encounters. Idolatry. That's what it's speaking about. Idolatry. That's where the whoredom came in at, through idolatry. That's what Yah talks about the children of Israel through the old covenant. We read that earlier this morning too in Jeremiah 8. Worshiping the sun and the moon, making graven images and worshiping. Back then they would go up and worship in the groves. Matter of fact, some places where they were worshiping to Yah, beside there they were worshiping to Satan, building graven images next to the other altars. This is how wicked they become. You know, because back during that time, when Yah brought them over into Canaan land, he did not get rid of all the Baal cities. Baal Hanan, Baal Peor. All those Baal cities were still there. He took them and placed them in there as a test. Still a test. You don't think he could have wiped all that out? Yeah, he could have wiped it out. If he wanted to. When they went to make war, he could have wiped it all out. But it's a test. Just like Adam, or I should say the woman and the female, and the male and female, they had a test, right? What was their test? Y'all didn't have to put that tree in the middle of the garden. He didn't have to do that, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but he did, right? It was a test, it was a trial, and they failed. Children of Israel went over into the Canaan land. Yah did not get rid of those 17 Baal cities that were still there. Because these 17 Baal cities, and I don't know if I get to it today, because we're going to get into how this Baal stuff initially, because we got to understand the origin of how all this stuff with Babylon came about in order to know where we at right now. See, that's the purpose of a lot of this too. We got to know, I'm a firm believer in an origin of things, because in order for us to get a better understanding, anybody can sit up and say stuff about Mystery Babylon. But why is it called Mystery Babylon? Well, you need to know something about Babylon. Then you'll know why this is a mystery. That's what we're going to be talking about when we get to that verse. I don't think we're going to get that verse today, though. But it's got 4 parts. So, the Old Covenant prophets often compared apostate Israel, which repeatedly went a-whoring after heathen gods. And go to Numbers. Let's look at some examples. Let me see if this is one here. Yeah, go to Numbers 25:1. Somebody look at that one. Numbers 25:1. Just give you examples. It's throughout the Old Covenant. And then there's a bunch of other ones, but I got one other one after this one. Somebody want to read that, 25:1?
Numbers
And
25.
Israel abide in Shittim, and people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab.
Of Moab, yes. And go to another one is Ezekiel, chapter 16, verse 15. I have a few other ones, but just do those two. Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 15. Making it. It was looking as an adulterous woman. Read that. Somebody get that one. 16:15.
Ezekiel 16:15. But thou didn't trust in thine own beauty, and playeth the harlot because of thy renown, and pureth out thy fornications on every. Wait a minute. And poureth out thy fornications on everyone that passed by.
It's idolatry. They were terrible. It was way off into idolatry. The children of Israel were. And it's even worse today. It's even worse today. This was, the children of Israel was acting as an adulterous woman. And why was it an adulterous woman? Because sin separates us from Yah. He considered us married to him. At the end, he's the husband and we the wife. When we get to Revelation 21. He's the husband and we the wife. So therefore, if that's the case, and we go out and commit whoredom, which he's considering idolatry and all those type of things, then that means we're separating ourselves from him. That's why he relates to the assemblies, the churches, or however you want to call them. He relates to them as women. There's only 2 types of women in here. It's the true woman and the false woman. That's it. That's it. So in John 17, when he says he wants us to come together as one, that's the true assembly. When he wants us to come together as one. This stuff we talk about in Revelation 17, this woman here, oh no, that's the false woman there. That's the counterfeit woman. Remember in Revelation 12:1, we highlighted the true assembly of Yah. Thus, Revelation 12 speaks in contrast, opposite to Revelation 17:1-4, which identifies this great whore, the mother church of Roman Catholicism, the system. The apostate church as having judgment coming upon her, which will be, and we're going to explain this later. All the judgment, well, I'll say that later, but later could be part 3. So, when we get to 17:5, which is not going to be today, see, I think as far as we're going to get today, I can as far as verses concerned. I believe as far as we're going to get today is going to be, I think it's verse 3. As far as we get further, we get verse 5. Okay, so we're going to explain more detail when we get to, and I think it's in the second part, this 17:5. Here is, let me show you this. Here's a map of Babylon. It's a map of what Babylon looked like. I had these arrows pointing to it so you all can see it. Here's Babylon here. And here, right here, you can't see it, but that's the Euphrates River. You see Euphrates right here. And the Tigris right above it. All this is right now is southern Iraq. That's what this is where this is located. This is what they would consider called Mesopotamia area. This is what they would consider the land of Shinar. You know, you got names and names, right? Babylon was called different names. It had different names that Babylon itself was called. It was also called the Golden City. So this is the Euphrates River. Here's Babylon, which started back here with these. You remember those four rivers: Euphrates, Tigris, Pison, and Gershom, right? These two are the only two that's existing. Euphrates and Tigris still exist. So I just wanted you to be able to get an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about literal Babylon. This is what mystical Babylon patterned itself off of. So, in this verse, it says, going back to Revelation 17, the last part of that verse says, sitteth upon many waters. Well, you guys already know what the sitteth upon many waters is already. People, you said, right? Yes, because it tells us that over there in Revelation 15, same chapter. 17:15 tell us, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are people and multitudes and nations and tongues. So that's clear. So that's the waters that we're talking about right here. So they came out of people. And I explained earlier how the papacy in itself came out. That's why it was called in 13 the sea beast, because it came out of the Roman Empire. It came out of people. It was developed, formed out of people. So the formative verb in Greek presents the great whore as in power at the time and a continuing to exercise power. So as the ancient city of Babylon was situated upon the literal waters of the Euphrates, it was on the literal waters of Euphrates, because the Euphrates River went all the way down to here. And you see, this is how the Persians can come up. This was Persia and the Medes and the Persians. That right here is present day Iran. Iran is right next to Iraq. That's the present day. And they formed out of many, they come out of many waters. They're sitting, this woman is sitting on many waters. Sitting on many waters. That means she's probably got influence over them. But we'll continue on. Go with me to Jeremiah 51. And look there, 51, verse 12 and 13. It says, set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon. Make the watch strong. Set up the watchmen. Prepare the ambushes. For the Yahuwah have both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. O thou that dwelleth upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come in the measure of thy covetousness. Yes, it did set upon the water.
What
Yeah.
verses?
What's that, Rich?
You just said the verse of chapter 51.
Jeremiah 51, 12 and 13.
Okay.
That's verse 12 and verse 13. So mystical or spiritual Babylon is represented as sitting upon or oppressing the people of the earth, sitting upon them. If I took somebody and laid them in the floor and sat on them, it's going to be hard for them to get up. That means you control them. If you sat on a child, that child ain't going to do nothing. What are they going to do? So, same one. Verse 2, chapter 17. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. With the wine of her fornication. So the kings of the earth, this civil and some kind of political powers of this earth, this, according to Revelation 13, would be equivalent to the number of the name. The number of the name. The kings of the earth. Revelation 13, 17, which have committed fornication. G4203, it means, committed fornication mean to indulge in unlawful lust or either sex or figuratively practice idolatry. Yes. Yes. And they did it as well with the inhabitants as well of the earth. Other than just the kings of the earth, they also did it with the inhabitants of the earth. So everybody else. Now that kind of makes sense, right? Because now when you go back over to 13 and it starts talking about the two W's, the world wondered after the beast and the world worshiped the beast. Now it kind of ties in over here, see? Kind of get a little clue, more clues. So, this great whore, which is the beast of Revelation 13:1, has caused many to wonder after her, according to Revelation 13:3. The second beast out of Revelation 13:11 has spoken and caused many to follow and give image or false or evil spirit, using that evil spirit, using that falsehood, using those lies, using that deception of the sea beast. Causing many out here to follow the ways of the sea beast, the inhabitants of the earth, the kings of the earth. That's the wickedness that's going on. Leaders and the inhabitants have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Here in Revelation 17:2, this drunk, G3184, did you know it means to be intoxicated, and metaphorically is one who has shed blood and murdered, this is what this word means, and murdered profusely. Revelation 13:1 and 2 tells me that during the dark ages, over 50 million people were killed by the sea beast. It's going to pop up again. We already know, right? We already know there's nothing new under the sun. What's been done before will happen again. We already know that from Ecclesiastes. We already know that. So we shouldn't be surprised about that. That shouldn't be anything surprising. So this was one of the characteristics that can be attached to this woman or this Catholic institution or system. Look at here. So you're going to look at this for a second. So here's some estimates of the numbers killed by the papacy in the Middle Ages and later. Just by this guy here. This is from the book of History of Romanism. It says, from the birth of popery in 606, that's AD, to the present time, it is estimated by careful and credible historians that more than 50 million of the human family have been slaughtered for the crimes of what they call heresy. Now, you all remember, I mentioned about heresy before, what the scriptures say heresy is. Heresy is those that go against his word here, not the Catholic Church. See, but the Catholic Church calls ones that go against its word as heresy. See? So, by popish persecutors, an average of more than 40,000 religious murders for every year of the existence of popery. Do you see that? 40,000 every year for the existence of popery. A fundamental Baptist website says the following. It has been estimated by careful and reputed historians of the Catholic Inquisition that 50 million people were slaughtered for the crime of heresy by Roman persecutors between AD 606 and, of course, the Middle Ages, the 19th century. Okay, the following quotation is from the what they call the Glorious Reformation by this Smucker. Discourse in commemoration of the Glorious Reformation of the 16th century, delivered before the Evangelical Lutheran Synod of West Pennsylvania. This is what it says, citing Dr. Brownlees. Popery, an enemy to civil liberty. He says, need I speak to you of the 30-year war between May 23rd, 1618 and 1648 in Germany, which was mainly instigated by the Jesuits. See, they play a role here, by the Jesuits, in order to deprive the Protestants of the right of free religious worship secured to them by the Treaty of Augsburg, or of the Irish Rebellion, of the inhuman butchery of about 15 million of Indians in South America, Mexico, and Cuba by the Spanish papists. In short, it is calculated by authentic historians that papal Rome has shed blood of 68 million of the human race in order to establish her unfounded claims to religious dominion. This is serious. This is back then. I've heard all kind of different numbers. I ain't heard nothing under 50 million. Everything been over 50 million. One is too many. We're 50 million. 50 million people. It says 40,000 per month. Those that chose not to worship the great whore, going back to the persecution period of 538 to 1798, which is that 1,200 year prophecy period, Daniel 7:25, were killed. We're out. The word "we're out" in that scriptures says "we're out" means H1080, which is the root word H1086, I believe it is, meaning to afflict or consume. Scriptures tell us in 2 Timothy 3:12, his people how does it says that we should suffer persecution? If we live in Yah, we will suffer persecution. So we can't go thinking everything's just going to be hunky-dory. It's not going to happen. According to Revelation 13:15, we read earlier, I believe it was, they're going to be killed because this earth beast is going to give image to the sea beast, and those that don't want to adhere to it will be killed. This wine that it speaks of is the false doctrines according to, go over to, see if this is the one. I have Jeremiah 25, 15 to 16. Let's read that one. Jeremiah 25, 15 and 16. Somebody want to read that for me? Jeremiah 25. I'll go ahead and read it. For thus saith Yahuwah of Israel unto me, take the wine cup of this fury at my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink it. And they shall drink and be moved and mad because of the sword that I will send upon them. Of course, that word mad there means to boast. It means to boast. The actual word means to boast, to celebrate. That word mad. Don't mean what you think it means. They honor and celebrate. That what they did during the Dark Age? Didn't they? Weren't they? Matter of fact, if you read the Book of Martyrs, Fox's Book of Martyr, and I couldn't even read that whole thing. It was terrible. They invented different persecutions. In other words, besides normal persecution, they invented more ways how they could kill the people. I know some of them top of my head, but I ain't gonna say them. But they were in that book, that Fox's Book of Martyr. They invented new methods how they could kill what they considered the heretics.
So during this time period, these people obviously was conditioned or brainwashed to think that they was
Talk louder.
they was either conditioned
There
or
you go.
brainwashed thinking that they was doing the right thing, right?
You talking about the papacy?
Yeah. And
Back then?
yeah.
They ain't
yeah,
brainwashed.
Even now.
They wasn't brainwashed. They know what they were doing. They know what they were doing. They weren't like blind leading the blind. No, they wasn't that. No, they knew exactly what they were going to do. Matter of fact, let me give you an example how I know that they know. When you go into the write-ups of some of the stuff that they say, you know, like other write-ups of other people that's Catholics and all kind of people, they say that they have authority over the scriptures. That is not knowing. See,
It was pagan.
they are not naive, okay? They're not naive. No, zero. They understand and they know.
Well, I mean,
They
they
were,
call
um,
themselves the vicar of Christ. I said they call themselves the vicar of Christ. So,
Yes, there you go.
that-
They call themselves a vicar, which means when they're God on earth, as they call it. That's what it is. They know what they're doing.
There was
Which one?
there were pagans and
Read it.
there were pagans and do Baal worship. So
Say that again, Red.
no, I would say they knew they know they pagans and they doing Baal worship behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, John 16:2. You read,
Yep.
They shall put you out of the synagogues. Yeah, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think
That's it.
that he doeth God's
The
service.
time's coming. Time is coming. Again, just like this morning, this is serious time, guys. I'm telling you, it's serious. Just because it has not come upon us right now does not mean this is not going to happen. This is going to happen. Our mindset. Where is our mindset? What are we thinking about? Do we think life just going to continue on, just roll the way it is, and 25 years later we still doing the same things, rolling right along? 30 years from now, everything's rolling right along. 40 years on, you people out there right now. And every time I think about this, I think about the verses we talk about in Matthew 6, 19 to 21. Those verses that says that our treasures should be in heaven, not on earth. Wherever your treasure is, what else? That's where your heart is. So if we're focusing so much on the earth and trying to be what do you call it? Trying to be rich. Solomon got a lot to say about that. To be rich, trying to load ourselves up for our families down the line or for ourselves, that stuff is going to get burned up. That people don't understand that, man. Matter of fact, when you tell people, see, that's why Yahushua, when the young rich ruler came to him and asked him, he was telling him, what can I do to inherit the kingdom? He said, I kept the commandments. He said, that's good. But now take everything you got, right? Sell it and give it to the poor. He walked down with his head down. You can imagine that they would do that now, right? No one's got beat. You can imagine that, right? Why? Because their heart is here. Their heart is here. Is there anything wrong with having money? No, ain't nothing wrong with having it. Ain't nothing wrong with having it. There's nothing wrong with having it. But when it's your heart, that's the difference. How, everything that we have, we acknowledge that God gave it to us. I listen, when I see and listen to some of these people that's got a lot of money, I don't hear his name nowhere in sight.
Hey, Brother Birch.
And a lot of them raised up in church too. And so, yes, Rich.
And if phrase that the papacy know what they're doing because they wouldn't be chained the Bibles to the pews and not let people read it because they know they wasn't going by it in the first place. And
Right.
the ones that going to think they're doing right is the one that actually being deceived, the common people out there and about.
Right.
You're the one that they're gonna think they be doing y'all service, knowing they being deceived. But the leaders, they know they worship the dragon. Behind closed door, they know who they worship.
They know they haven't been studying. Right? They know they haven't been studying. So when you go to them and start talking before all this stuff happened, go to them and start talking to them, they look at you like you're crazy. Or they look at you and say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Don't realize they're lying, because lying comes from here. It don't have to come from because Vincent don't know that I'm not telling them the truth. It don't have to be a physical thing. Lying starts in the heart. That's where it starts at. That's what happened to Zephyr and was it Ananias? Isn't that what happened to them? They lied in the Ruach. See, that was here. And what happened to them? Struck down dead. Boy, I tell you, we got so much mercy out here. Yah has given us so much mercy because there's so much lying going. The scripture says in Proverbs 12:22 that lying lips are abomination to the Lord. And lying is running rampant. Were you going to say something, Jacqueline?
Actually, Rich said what I was getting ready to say.
I said it?
I said Rich said what I was getting ready
okay.
to say. The leadership knew, but people that haven't studied, that are deceived, those are the people that feel like that they're doing the right thing, and they're doing it for Yah, but they're really
right.
They're not studying.
Yeah, and if you think about it though, if you was to go to any of the first day churches, ask them, do they think they're doing the right thing? They're going to say yes, right? All of them, everybody. Listen, you got these separate denominations. You got these separate churches because they think they are doing the right. They split off from each other. That's how everything started. Everything came out of Catholicism. We'll find that out in chapter 5. Verse 5 and here in 17. These churches, Protestant churches, came out of Catholicism. And then they split up. Then they split up. Why they split up? Because they can't get along, half of them. Everybody got different thoughts and opinions. Ain't none of them. I don't want to pass judgment on anybody, but I'm telling you right now, if you come to me and tell me once saved, always saved, then you're not studying. I'm just going to be honest with you. You're just not studying. If you come to me and tell me, like we said earlier, you die and go straight to heaven, you're not studying. You can't be studying. When you come to me and tell me that the first day of the week is the day that we should be honoring the Creator, you're not studying. So me to tell you you're not studying, that's not passing judgment. I'm going to tell you what happened. Let me give you an example, scripture-wise. Now I got to find it, because I hadn't planned on saying this, Lisa. Now I got to find it. I think what I'm looking for is in Deuteronomy, I think. I think it's in Deuteronomy, and Where I'm trying to find out where it's at. Here we go. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 31. And you tell me why you think Moses said this. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 31. Deuteronomy chapter 31 and verse 29. No, start with 28. No, don't even start at 20. Start with 27. Go chapter 31, 27 to 29, and 29 is the one I'm looking at though. But start with 27. I'll read it so y'all can listen to it. It says, "For I know thy rebellion and the stiff neck. Behold, while I am yet alive with you this day, ye have been rebellious against Yahuwah, and how much more after my death." Okay, so he makes that statement, right? 28. "Gather unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to record against them." Here's the verse, 29. "For I know," now you tell me if he's passing judgment, "for I know that after my death ye will utterly corrupt yourselves." He's pronouncing this on them already. He said, "For I know," this is Moses, "for I know that after my death ye will utterly corrupt yourselves and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days, because ye will do evil in the sight of Yahuwah to provoke him to anger through the work of your hand." Question, is he judging them? Is that what we consider like judging someone? If the scriptures tell us, "Judge ye not, that ye be not judged. For what judgment I judge, ye should be judged to you." So the question I have for you, if I tell somebody, "You ain't going to make it into heaven," is that judging? Okay. If I'm conducting myself in an un-Yahushalite way for all these years you knowing me, and I turn around, I say, "Man, you ain't going to do the right thing. You don't want to do the right thing." Would I be wrong saying that you don't want to do the right thing? And you've been doing it all your life, ever since I've been knowing you? He's been with them 40 years in the wilderness. 40 years in the wilderness. Matter of fact, it's because of them why he didn't enter the promised land. Because he struck. I tell you, Moses was off the chain, man. Think about all them people he had to be in. And them people were just moaning and groaning and complaining. Matter of fact, Numbers 14:22 says that the children of Israel tempted him 10 times. 10 times. So I'm saying, after all that stuff they saying through that whole time, for him to then turn around and say, "I know that after my death, you will utterly corrupt yourselves." Why would he say that? Because that's what you've been doing. You have not changed. You have, since day one, when we left out of there, you was complaining. And here it is, year 40, y'all getting ready to enter with Joshua, and you still, matter of fact, those that came out of Egypt wasn't going to make it into the promise that they were so foolish, did foolish things. Just Joshua and Caleb. The ones that made it in there, the ones that was born in the wilderness. Under the ages of 20, I think it was. Those are the ones that made it into the promised land. Not all those other ones. So he wasn't wrong saying that. You guys showed y'all way. And obviously, he was correct, because they didn't make it in, did they? So anyway, got sidetracked a little bit there. So the continuation of false doctrines that this woman patterned herself after, or this whore, was literal Babylon. That's why she is called Mystery Babylon in verse 5. And her false doctrines has continued since her inception. And through his deception, Satan, as Yahushua spoke on in Matthew 24, this poison of deception is attached to the woman and then attached to the people, thus causing the kings of the earth and the inhabitants of the earth to indulge in false doctrines and following her. And again, I don't think it's going to be today, but I'm going to talk about this spiritualism and false doctrines. That's coming up. That's part of this. That's going to be part of this. Matter of fact, I think it is going to come up now. Part of it is, at least. Counterfeits. These counterfeits of the enemy. Speaking of Satan. There's nothing true about him. Everything is counterfeit. Everything is fake. It's counterfeit. Listen, we're going to go through this. I'm just going to go through it real smooth and go through the verses. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, ye know not that friendship of this world is enmity with Yah. Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of Yah. So the enemy has counterfeits. The enemy has people that's fake out there, counterfeits. Adulterers and adulteresses. And I ain't talking about sexual. I'm talking about worshiping idols. Idol worshiping. Anybody heard the word ecumenical movement? I'm going to talk about that too eventually. That's something that's very important too. Because two can't walk together except they agree. See, all the scriptures line up. When Yahushua in John 17 talk about he wants us to be one, you can't be one if you in this religion, that denomination. You know why? Because they all believe something different. So how can all of them walk together as one? Can't. It's not possible. That's why we don't have it today like that. We got thousands of different denominations and organizations and groups and religions and stuff. That's why we have all that. Now, here's another one. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Okay. He's a murderer, right? You remember earlier today when I was showing you all these mass murders? Who do you think that's patterning after? All these over 1,200 something mass murder just in this year alone. They're following the lust of their father. Oh, we're going to put it in perspective. If you out here killing, because the scriptures tell us thou shalt not kill, murder, thou shalt not kill. People are killing. So therefore, if he's a murderer from the beginning, that means you are following and lusting after your father who is a murderer. You're doing what your father does. You ain't doing what Yahuwah does. You're doing what your father does, which is Satan. Satan himself transforming into an angel of light. That's something he's going to happen. The evil spirit is a counterfeit to the Holy Spirit or to the Ruach. Passing of children through the fire, which is a counterfeit to the children of Israel's sacrificial system back then. They were sacrificing children. That's what the paganism did. That's what the heathen nations did. That's what worshiping of Baal did back in those times. Baal prophets counterfeit to Yah's prophets. 1 Kings 18, 20 to 22. These are some counterfeits. These are counterfeits. Uh-oh. So the enemy counterfeit system of evangelists, preachers, and apostles. You can see that over in 2 Corinthians 11, 13 to 15. Oh, he has his workers out there. He has his workers sitting right next to you. Stirring up stuff. He has preachers and apostles out here, calling themselves apostles, calling themselves preachers of Yah, and doing everything contrary to this. The enemy counterfeit use of another spirit, preach another gospel. We know about that, right? I wrote it like this, but the scriptures actually say it's really not another gospel. It's a perverted gospel. So we have a counterfeit of the enemy that's out here teaching perverted gospels. If anybody teach any of these gospels and stuff like that, then let them be accursed, the scripture says. And then he repeats it again. If you didn't hear it, let it be accursed. Let him be accursed. Following after a perverted gospel. Not another gospel. It says it's not another gospel, it's a perverted gospel. That makes sense because if you say it's another gospel, it's like it's another path to Yahushua. It's only one. No name given among men whereby we must be saved. One way, one path. Not 5,000 ways to get there. Through this path, that path. Yeah, we all have different personalities. We all have different characteristics. But it's going to the same point. Going to the same point. Yah has to, had an old saying, Yah has to take us where we ought to bring us where we ought to be. So wherever you're at, he's got to bring you to that point. That point is not some point out there. That point is through Yahushua HaMashiach. That's the only way. He's the mediator. He's the only mediator. He's it. That's it. The enemy counterfeit system, doctrines of devils. There's doctrines of devils. You know, all this false doctrine. You know, we just talked about some of them. You know, it's so many false. There's so many lies and false doctrines out there. Bunch of lies, man. You guys, anytime you hear somebody say something, you have to prove it against the scriptures. You got to prove it against this. You have to literally prove, like the question Grady asked earlier this morning, when somebody throws those kind of questions up, you got to let the scriptures speak for itself. So if you're going to come with me with something that somebody is telling you or something you feel like you have read and understand, then my answer to you is going to be through here. So then when you go back to prove it, you prove it not what I say, but what the scripture says. That's what you do. Because all I'm repeating is what this says. So the time is coming. Well, let me read. There's a few. I got a few more, I think. Like the enemy has a counterfeit communion table of devil. Yeah, you have a counterfeit communion. You know, Yahushua has a communion. Yeah, he has a counterfeit communion with his devils. Isn't that something? Counterfeit table of devils. Table of devils. Remember, Satan is not a creator. All he does is take what's already out there and counterfeit it. That's what he does. He's the counterfeiter. The enemy has a counterfeit organization. Ephesians 6:12. Spiritual darkness. Wickedness in high places. Yeah, he's got his own little organization down there. And he ain't up there, he's down there. Even though he himself is roaming the earth, the scripture says he's like a roaring lion seeking he can devour. He's in the wilderness. That's where we at, in the wilderness. In the wilderness. Yah creates, Satan imitates. Yah angels, Satan demons. The heavenly treasures, the earthly treasures. Truth, lies. Ruach field, demon possessed. Yah's true Sabbath, counterfeit Sabbath. The true king, the counterfeit king. The Pope mitre, Revelation 13:18, is a counterfeit to the high priest Aaron mitre and every high priest afterwards at that time. Truth plus truth equals truth. Lie plus lie equals a lie. Truth plus a lie equals a lie. Still deception. It equals deception. Truth plus a lie equals deception. So the time is coming while we are dealing with spiritual darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places that the deception will be so escalated and extreme that the devils will be inhabiting the earth, as we talked about in Revelation 18:2. So at some time when Babylon falls, the scriptures say it has become the habitation of devils, which implies that devils are inhabiting the earth prior to Babylon is fallen. That's another thing. I haven't got to it, but I just want to mention that. You notice it says Babylon over there in chapter 14. It says Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Notice it says it twice. It didn't say it 3 times. It didn't say it once. It said Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Why do you think that? Huh?
Spiritual and physical?
It fell one time already, the literal Babylon, and it's getting ready to fall again, the spiritual Babylon. Exactly. So fornication also represents false worship, false doctrines of worship. Babylonians had a false worship system. Again, I'm going to be taught by that when we do verse 5. Explanation is forthcoming, verse 5. But we must see the correlation between the dragon, the beast, and the woman, the great whore. She only follows one she is sitting on. When we do chapter 2, I'm just going to bring this up now before I forget. Chapter 2, not chapter 2, but part 2, 3, and 4 of this chapter, we're not meeting here. I'm just going to do it like we do our Zoom meetings, okay? So I'll bring it up on a Zoom meeting. So we're not to meet here. The only day we got to meet here next week is what day? Thursday. Because what is that day? Feast of Trumpets. That's the day we have a holy convocation, okay? The other days, we're just going to do it like we do Zoom, okay? So I just want everybody to know that. All right. The origin of spiritualism. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Yah have said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. For Yah doeth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods. And that started spiritualism when she ate it. That was the beginning of spiritualism. Right there. That started it. You're going to be as gods. Do you think if Yah had created them in the beginning like he did, that if he intended for them to know all that, he would have already intended them to know it? They only knew. Oh, they know now the difference between good and evil. It wasn't meant necessarily for them to know evil. Because when Yah created everything, he said everything was good. Evil didn't come into play until they ate of the fruit. So therefore, I'm looking here, and this, ye shall be as God. Do you know how? I don't know if I'm talking about this one or not, but I really want to show you something about how that has transpired through the years. But it's one of these slides. I don't know if it's coming up, or it might be another day. I don't even remember now, because I got a lot of stuff on this, but it's one of them. Here's something here, spiritualism. Spiritualism is a religion, a movement based on belief that departed souls can interact with the living. Spiritualists sought to make contact with the dead, usually through the assistance of a medium, like what Saul did. A person who believed to have the ability to contact spirits directly, like again, 1 Samuel 28. Here's different traps of the enemy. Listen, let me just say this to you. And this ain't the one I was thinking about here. Let me just say this to you. Just because name changes don't mean that the source changes. These names, mediumship. You might see these sometimes. You read mediumship, spiritual healing, spiritual world, spirit guide, seances, spirit possession, automatic writing, psychometry. All these words here, oh, that's spiritualism. Yeah, that's bit of that spiritualism. Oh, there's the other ones you'll see. I ain't going to bring them up now. When we get the slide, I'll bring them up. Some of them you've heard me say before. But spiritualism is dressed up real nice and neat. It's all dressed up. People just dive right on into it. Next thing you know, they're off on the races. It's terrible, man. It's rough. The world would take on the image of the beast, except those few, the remnant, few, who find it important to follow the Lamb wherever he goes, just like the 144,000, even if it's meant death. While many would die during the mercy period or during the 3.5-year period, the time is coming whereby death will come upon those that adhere to the commandments of Yah and the faith of Yahushua HaMashiach. The earth beast, according to Revelation 13:15, will promote the spirit of or image of the sea beast, which we discovered already is none other than the papacy. And the eighth beast, as I mentioned earlier, is United States. The words and action upon Yah's people for being defiant and refusing to worship the sea beast is drawing near, and their lives will be in jeopardy. Much of Revelation 17 occurred during the 7 last plagues, based on the preludes of verse 1. Thus, those alive during the 7 last plagues would soon witness the coming of Yahushua HaMashiach. After the short period of no mercy for the wicked, however, the righteous will be guarded by angels, but not without going through anguish, as Jacob did when he was wrestling with the angel. And who was he wrestling with? Yahushua. So the consolidation of different forms of spiritualism brought about confusion. Spiritualism first started in the Garden of Eden, which we just went through. It first started in the Garden of Eden. I don't know how that went down to there. First started in the Garden of Eden. And now it's perpetuated throughout history now. The same be as gods. People think they're gods. So that's, that is bad. But I want to get into something now, eventually here, that kind of like, I don't know, it's, well, before I get in, let me just still talk about some other things. Remember I was mentioning you earlier about Euphrates and the Tigris River. First the Euphrates. Here's the Euphrates River. You notice I got verses next to every last one of these, primarily these cities and stuff here. Got verses next to them. Okay. Polytheism. That's the worship of many gods. It started in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is what you see right in here. See that Mesopotamia? All this was Mesopotamia. That means Nineveh, remember Nineveh? Babylon, all that was considered part of Mesopotamia. Okay. They had 7 gods in particular that they worshiped, they honored. These ones you see here. And I ain't even try to pronounce their names. But these, well, Anki, Ninusar, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Nana, Utu, and Anana. And then the 7th one is Enlil. Enlil. In Mesopotamia was the supreme god of the pantheon, god of the wind and storm. Who today that you know of has a pantheon? I don't talk about it here because when I get down to here, which is on another slide, I didn't do it on this one because it wasn't important to put it on here. But who has a pantheon? You know what a pantheon is? Pantheon is a place where they have all their gods and all that stuff at a pantheon. You know, they had like their statues of gods and pictures and all this kind of stuff. Who does that? Catholic Church have a pantheon. It used to have the statues and everything. I heard it's different now. I heard they had mostly just pictures. They don't have the statues. That's what I heard. They said they had, 3 to 4 million or 1.5 to 3 million visitors a year. So they have a pantheon. You have the Roman pantheon. But it used to have all their gods and all this kind of stuff in there. You know, that's what they used to have. Jupiter and all that. So Enlil was also called Marduk, Babylonian. Eventually, he was called simply Baal. Remember that word Baal in the scripture, B-E-L? Meaning Lord Baal. You see it in Jeremiah 51:44. Lord of the air. It then spreads out. This is one of these kind of things where you have a source, but then it goes out and it's got different names. Grecian, you got Zeus. He's the god of the sky. You got Jupiter, god of the sky, in Rome. Then you remember, where did the children of Israel go? They went to the promised land that was called what? Canaan. So the name of the gods that came out of here, when they went over to the Canaan land, they were called Baal. And you see that throughout the scriptures. Baal. Baal Hadad, Baal this, Baal that, Baal this. So when Yah brought them over to Canaan land, he didn't get rid of all this Baal worshiping. These little cities, they called them Baal cities, they were still there. I think I counted 17. Baal cities were scattered throughout the land. They didn't get rid of them. But this is where it originated from. Mesopotamia. Everything has an origin. Everything has an origin. That's a starting point. So when you see Baal in the scriptures, know that it came out of Mesopotamia. It didn't start there, it came over there. Oh yeah. I've just talked about Greece, Rome, and the Canaanites. But you know there's others. The others, like Egyptians, they had their own gods. They had over 115 different gods at the time, I think it was. They all got all these gods and stuff, you know. Paganism, polytheism, heathenism, whatever you want to call it. Not serving Yahwism. How about that one? So, here's something. I ain't going to stay long with this slide, but here's another one. This is coming out of Babylon. Origin of false worship system after the flood, ancient Babylon. Just an example. False sacrificial system of offering children. See, it came out of that thinking. This paganism. That's where that came out of. The pagan worship of polytheism, worshiping other gods. And you got different verses here. The first world order attempt, Genesis 11. When they was trying to make a name for themselves over there, and that was Babylon. Okay? Nineveh, Babylon. False worship system, Baal, of course. First pagan male considered a god, Genesis 10:9. They considered Nimrod a god at that time. You all already read about this one. Anybody remember who this was? The Queen of Heaven. Most people didn't even know that was even in there. The children of Israel were worshiping and making cakes for the Queen of Heaven. The men couldn't do nothing with them. Go to Jeremiah. Men couldn't do nothing with them women. Jeremiah 44 couldn't do nothing with them. Jeremiah chapter 44. Over there in chapter 44, start at verse 15. Look at verse 15. Then all the men who knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelled in the land of Egypt in Patros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us into the name of Yahuwah, we will not hearken. We will. They knew, the scripture said Jeremiah, Yah knew that he was going to be a prophet while he was in the womb. Yah already knew he was going to be a prophet. This man's a prophet. They said, as far as the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Lord, they know who it's coming from. They said, as far as the word coming from the name of Yahuwah, so they know who it's coming from, we are not going to listen to him. Yeah, I'm getting chills when I think about that. And then you go to the next verse, and that's where you see your Queen of Heaven at. You see your Queen of Heaven there. That's where you see her. I think she's in here like 4 or 5 times. And look what they did there in 19. Look at verse 19. And when we burned incense to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drink offerings unto her, did we make her cakes to worship her and pour out drink offerings unto her without our men? They were buck wild. Without our men. I ain't listening to what they saying. I'm not going to even listen to what Yahuwah saying. We're going to go, we're going to offer our offerings to this Queen of Heaven, and we're going to sit back and make us some cakes, and we don't care what our husbands say to us. Matter of fact, forget the husband, we don't even care what Yah says. This is the kind of wickedness that was going on. And this is the kind of wickedness going to be in the last days. What we're reading that happened then is going to happen. Is happening now. Don't be fooled by that because we're reading this. Yeah, it might seem to be a story, but it's a true one, and it's going to be one that's going to come into fruition again. Okay, so I am going to get to the slide I wanted to get to. I think. Hey, Eric. Okay, this is the one I wanted to get to. This is more modern, can bring it to where we at right now. Just remember we was talking about you should be as gods? This is where it started at, right here. Why that thing keeps changing? It's over here. So, Genesis 3:5. From there, it almost, and I put dates, times next to it. Mythicism. This is when the words you start seeing roots back to ancient times. I didn't get no specific date, but it roots back to ancient time, mythicism. Then Gnosticism. That word Gnosticism originated in the 1st and the 2nd century AD. Then pantheism. It emerged in the 17th century. When I say 17th century, that's like 1601, 1600 to 1699. That's the 17th century. Universalism. You go into the Google and all that, you see these words in there. Late 18th century. Panentheism. 19th century. Occultism. 19th century. Then down here on the side, you have the prosperity theology. You all know about that. You have the charismatic movement. You have the New Age movement. You have postmodernism. You have postmodern Christianity. You have spiritual formation, and I'm going to have a message on that sometime, on spiritual formation. You have emerging church. All these was like the late 19th to 20th century, and then the early 21st century. And guess what? All that together adds up to the ecumenical movement of will worship. Go with me to Colossians chapter 2, verse 23. I mentioned earlier about Amos 3:3. Can two walk together except they agree? When you go over to Colossians 2:23, it says, what things have indeed a show of wisdom in will worship and humility and neglecting of the body, not in any honor to the satisfying of the flesh. When you read this, you get understanding what will worship is. Will worship is G1479, which means voluntary or arbitrary or something unwarranted. Piety, sanctimony. Arbitrary means based on random choice or personal whims rather than any reason or system, or sanctimony means the action or practice of acting as if one were morally superior to other people. You have will worship. If you go over to Judges chapter 21, verse 25, it tells us that in the day there was no king and people were done as they pleased, whatever's in their heart. Guess what, guys? That's what's going on now. Whatever people's in their hearts, that's what's going on. Whatever people want to do, they do. They go out there and form a church tomorrow. And not following anything. Everything that's going on, just following this and following that and doing this and doing that. None of that stuff. All that's tied of will worship. All that's part of the ecumenical movement. They're just throwing new things in there. Just give it time. You see this right here, right? Don't be surprised you come up with some more. some more new names come up. See, all this here is deception. Not only is it deception, not one single one of these words is in the scripture. Find Gnosticism. Find any of these words in there. Only thing you see in there is this one, the very origin. At that point, Satan went buck wild. Oh, let's throw mysticism, Gnosticism, pantheism, panentheism, universalism, occultism, prosperity theology. Oh, charismatic movement. If that don't get him, let's get the New Age movement. Oh, New Age movement means you find your own way. You know, the way through Yahushua ain't good enough. So you can find your own way, I can find my own way, you can find your own way, and our ways may be different. Well, we know what way we're looking for, but we can find our own ways. Then you got the postmodern Christianity, postmodernism. Again, that spiritual formation and emergent church. This one is probably just about, these two here are just about the newest of them. You all have heard the emergent church? Where do you think all that stuff coming out of? This ecumenical movement. Everybody just one big old happy family. We all should be able to walk together. We all should be able to sit in the pews and all just go along with each other. You may believe this and you may believe that, but I know the scripture tell me how could two walk together except they agree. Mm-hmm. So if you're not going to be able to walk together except you agree, that means what you're doing is counterfeit. It's fake. You guys don't really love each other. You're not really following anything what thus saith the Lord because you don't even believe the same way. It's fake. Well, today we see people are making personal decisions and choices based on feelings, traditions, or whatever they think is right in their own heart instead of what saith Yahuwah. In addition, we find that those that place themselves above others, so we got that too now, that's part of this too, place themselves above others, but at the same time professing to be followers of Yahushua HaMashiach, and the scriptures say in Deuteronomy, certain places, I got a lot of texts here, that Yahushua doesn't have respect to person. So those individuals that get out here and think they're high and mighty, that's not of Yah. That right there by itself is enough. Forget about all the other stuff they're doing. Just the fact that them getting up there looking like they standing on a pedestal over everybody, that in itself is against Yah. Because there's no such thing in Yah's book, pride. Because you know what happened with pride. When pride comes, what happens with pride? Pride comes before the fall. That's what happened with Satan. Or I should say Lucifer. That's what happened with him. Pride. So will worship demonstrates a propensity or inclination or tendency to behave in a particular way. Any gospel outside the doctrines or gospel of Yahushua HaMashiach, again, is perverted. Not another gospel, but perverted. Can't get around that. That is the elevation and extent this whore. Now this is what this whore in Revelation 17, that's the extent to what this whore that sits upon many waters of people have carried throughout her existence through the continuance of spiritualism from its inception, and the Jesuits has been one of their tools they use. Because that's part of the Catholic Church. It's one of the arms of the Catholic Church, the Jesuits. And there's a little bit more to that too, because they have their Pope too, right? The Black Pope, they call it. And he's the Jesuit Pope. He's the general. He's higher than the other Pope that we see. When Pope Francis was a Jesuit Pope, right? Do you know they report to him, really? That's behind the scenes stuff I'm telling you. It was a long time before I recognized. I thought it was just talk. Because I heard they call it the Black Pope. I used to think that was just talk. You know, people just talk. Nah, it's real. Because, see, the Jesuits has become bold now. They're bold. They put all this, they don't have no problem putting their motto up there. You pull the motto on, that used to be hitting stuff. That stuff wasn't out in the public like that. The motto is ridiculous. They'll kill your children, they kill your wife. We read all that stuff, what they do. That ain't no longer behind the scenes. Now they put it out there, so it ain't hidden. It's out there now. So, that's the way it is. So, today, again, the name changes. All these names. And when I say name changes, even though they talk about pantheism, they still were saying mythicism. It just came up with other names. Just other names. Other names. Just a lot of new names, but the same source. That's where it originated, right there. See, because when you come up with new names, you can grab one or two here or there. See, when I come up with new scriptures, Lisa, I can grab one or two here and there, which you would call scripture. They ain't scripture. If I go out there and come up tomorrow with some new versions, I'll get somebody to look at it. They'll pull them away from somewhere else, maybe. See, that's what you do. You flood the market. When you flood it, then you got a chance of pulling somebody away from whatever it is you don't want them to be at. So if I got one thing right now, that's what they call a monopoly, right? You got one thing, and I don't want everybody following that one thing, so I come up with some more things that's different than that and hoping I can pull some of them out of there and go over to here. And that's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did with the KJV, and that's exactly what they've done with here. All these different beliefs, different names, same problem. All goes back down here to the ecumenical movement. Ecumenical movement. So what is the ecumenical movement? It's a movement and tendency toward worldwide religious unity or cooperation. The term of recent origin emphasizes what is viewed as a universality of the people to combine in faith and unity among churches. That's the ecumenical movement. That's the ecumenical movement. And I'm not going to read, I'm not going to go through all, I just want to just explain just a little bit of this to you. See, what we don't see, some of the things we don't see is some of the handshaking and some of the documents that these religions with the Catholic Church are doing. This is one of them. It's called Joint Declaration on the Doctrine of Justification. See, in the Catholic system, they believe that, you basically work your way to heaven. Or pay your way to heaven. You know what I mean? But Martin Luther didn't look at it like that. Martin Luther didn't look at it like that. We're saved by grace. Right? So he had that conflict with them. So here you got a joint declaration. So in other words, the Catholic Church have, in essence, came with a declaration between them and some other religious organizations. So I'll read this part. The doctrine of justification was one of the key debates in the Reformation period. It was the basis for condemnations of Catholics by Protestants and of Protestants by Catholics. It remains one of the key pillars of Reformation doctrine. However, in 1999, the Lutheran World Federation and the Roman Catholic Church published this right here, a landmark agreed text, a joint declaration on the doctrine of justification. That's what they did. And since that time, 3 other Christian world communions have affirmed this declaration, making it now a 5-way agreement between Catholics, Lutherans, Anglicans, Methodists, and Evangelicals. So in 2016, the Anglican Consultative Council passed this resolution called Resolution 1617. Later, the Reformed churches joined the declaration. So what you see is coming together, these religions. See, you don't see all this. Nobody knows anything about this. I would almost say that many of the people that's in these particular belief systems don't even know that. It's hard to prove that unless you talk to one. And the reason why I say that because I have talked to many Catholics. And I spoke to them about different things. They said, well, I didn't know that. It's like, you should have known. I'm telling you something about your own belief. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to say that they probably don't know some of the things that their higher ups are doing. They probably don't know. But whatever done in the dark always come to light at some point.
Hey, Brother Birch.
Yes.
Not even, I think I said it before, when all the Mormons go out, they don't even, the young ones don't even know their own belief.
Right. They don't. They really don't. Let's go over to verse 3. Verse 3. I don't think we're going to get off verse 3 today. Verse 3. So, verse 3, chapter 17 says, so he carried me away in the spirit, or in the ruach, into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the name of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So it carried me away, not in body as if he was removed from the island of Patmos to some other place, but in visionary way, just as Ezekiel was carried between the earth and the heaven when the lock of his hair was taken, as I mentioned earlier. It's like that. He's moved in the Ruach, literally in the Ruach. So John was able to see the things that otherwise he would not have been able to see. Okay? This wilderness, the Greek word eremos, G2048, means lonesome, desolate, waste, desert, solitary. You see it over in Revelation 12:6. The related verb, desolate, a G2049, used in Revelation 17:16, means to lay waste, come to naught. So a wilderness was an uninhabited region where life could be sustained only amid difficulties and danger. Food, shelter, possibly even water would be difficult to obtain, and there would be danger from wild animals and perhaps from ambushes when you first go into a wilderness. Accordingly, some consider that when used figuratively as here, a wilderness would be a situation fraught with difficulty and danger, apparently for Yah's people. Revelation 12, verse 6 to 14. But we know that Yah protected them during that 1260 years. Even though there was many that died, he still sent them to the wilderness. Could you imagine what would have happened if they all hadn't tried to flee and go into the wilderness? So since chapter 17 appears to deal most particularly with the time of the 7 last plagues, verse 1, this wilderness experience in Revelation 17 placed the world in a time of chaotic devastation. So do not get the wilderness confused with the wilderness of Revelation 12:6 and 13 through 16. Not there. Don't get it confused. For the wilderness of Revelation 17:3 represent a time when the world will be devastated and become desolate, as described in Jeremiah 4:23 to 27, which we have read many times, many times. So I won't read that now. You all get time, you can go back and read it, but it's Jeremiah 4:23 to 27. That's one of the times where I will reach this part where he says, I beheld and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities there were broken down at the presence of Yahuwah and by his fierce anger. So this is the wrath of Yah, the 7 plagues, 7 last plagues. So this woman in verse 3, this woman, here she is, this woman, Old Covenant Testament, the Old Covenant or Testament, prophets repeatedly represent apostate people as lascivious women. And we went through some of the verses. I want to go through that again. This woman, the great whore, or mystery Babylon the Great, in verse 5, is guilty of the blood of all that were slain upon the earth, dealing with Babylon in particular. It says it's slain upon the earth, though. So it's all of them. Mystical Babylon constitute organized religious opposition to Yah's people from the beginning of time, but here particularly at its very close in Revelation 17:5. then you see the word sit there. As mentioned earlier, this woman who sat on the scarlet colored beast was being instructed by the dragon who she was sitting on. And that makes sense because, again, you go back to Revelation 13, you go back to 2 Thessalonians 2:9, you see that the dragon was the one that gave power to the woman. He's the one who gave power to the beast. It was called beast, sea beast over there in Revelation 13. It's called woman here. He was the one that gave power to him. So yes, she regains her power as indicated in Revelation 13, 3-18 over church and state up until the 7 last plagues. Remember, she got her power from the dragon. That's who she got her power from. But somewhere in those winding down days leading up to Yahushua's second appearance, during the 7 last plague, we see in Revelation 16, 12-16, like we mentioned this morning, that threefold union of the dragon, who else? The beast and the false prophet, gathering people together to call themselves going to fight against Yah Almighty. Now you're talking about a losing battle. That's one of them times, we study this and we know that's a loss before you even get started. Just talking about it, you already lost. Boy. It's what? No. This chart right here. Now you can see here, I just picture how this is. If you notice in that verse, it says, so he carried me away into the spirit, into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy. So the beast was full of the name of blasphemy, with 7 heads and 10 horns, right? So all the heads and the horns and the blasphemy, all that stuff is attached to this beast, right? And we're going to find out either tomorrow or whenever, y'all willing, everything pertaining to her, the one that was sitting on the beast. Right now, it's talking about what this beast had. 7 heads, 10 horns, and blasphemy written all over it. So that's why you see me through little blasphemies all over. It's written all over it. And I thought I'd throw this in here too. Isaiah 9, 15-16 about the tail. Y'all can write that down. We mentioned this verse before about the tail. See? The leader is the tail too. He's the one that's speaking these lies. So here's right here. All this blasphemy. All over them. Full of it. Full of blasphemy. So, this next chart here. This is the one, this chart I want you to see. Hopefully this will help break it down. I hope I didn't miss anything here. But I'm taking Revelation 13, 16, 17, and 20 and also 12 is in here too, where it mentions different things here. It mentions different things. Like in Revelation 13, Satan is called the dragon. In Revelation 16, he's called the dragon. In Revelation 17, he's the 7th king. He is the beast. There in Revelation 17. And then in Revelation 20, he is the devil, the dragon. That's what he's called. So his name, just a little bit different there. But then the papacy. Look at the papacy now. This is all important when you're studying this. In Revelation 13, he's the sea beast. Right? Revelation 16, he's the beast. In Revelation 17, he's the woman or mystery Babylon. In Revelation 20, he's the beast. Then when you go over to the apostate, going against, teaching lies and doing all that stuff. Revelation 13, it's the earth beast. Revelation 16, it's the false prophet. Revelation 17, I have it as like the 10 horns and the 10 kings. And then in Revelation 20, it's the false prophet. Then when you come down here, this is another important one. What these belong to, or what belongs to these. Daniel 7, when it talks about the devil, it talks about heads and horns. Okay, now, one thing about the book of Daniel, chapter 7 in particular, you don't really hear it talking about worship or talking about religious aspects. Because in Daniel chapter 7, it's more so confined to these political / head of state / civil powers like Babylon, Mede, Persia, Greece, Rome. Yes, it does bring the little horn up, and it said it spoke great things against the Most High, but it doesn't go into like worship and all this. Don't use it. It don't start talking about that till it gets over to Revelation 13. So right now, when you look at chapter 7, the heads and the horns represent state power. And this is how you know. When you go to Daniel chapter 7, verse 6, the scriptures tell you, well, actually verse 3 first, that 4 beasts came up out of the sea. In verse 3, 4 beasts came out of the sea. The first beast it mentioned was a lion beast. Remember that? Second beast was a bear beast. The third beast in Daniel 7:6 was the leopard beast. These 4 beasts that came up out of the sea represents the 4 world powers that Nebuchadnezzar had in the dream, the vision, when he was visualizing that when he was sleeping on his bed, and he saw the head of gold, which was who? Babylon. The shoulders and the chest of silver, Mede, Persia. The stomach area and the thigh area, that was brass. That was Greece. And then the legs of iron, that was, of course, Rome. And then the feet mixed with iron and clay. We'll talk about that later on. But those 4 things primarily what Daniel focused on. But it had to start somewhere, and it started by letting us know this little horn, that little horn is in verse 11, chapter 7 of Daniel, verse 11, is the transition verse to let us know that that horn is also called a beast. And we get that name when we go over to Revelation 13. So looking at this, Revelation chapter 7, the heads is what came out of Daniel chapter 7 verse 6. When you look at that, what does it tell you? Read Daniel chapter 7 verse 6. Read Daniel. You got it? Yeah. Read that.
Daniel 7, 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it.
History tells me that that first beast, which was Greece was the beast. When you go to chapter 8, it then tells you who was the goat. Who was that goat that had that single horn coming out of him? It says it was the first king. Who was the first king? Alexander the Great. And then Alexander the Great, he ruled for 13 years. After he ruled, it was so many fights that have gone over his territory, 4 came out of it. Now I got to see if I remember them again. It was Asiticus, Ptolemy, Seleucus, and Cassandra. Those 4 generals. They were generals of Alexander the Great army. And the scriptures are saying there are 4 heads. Exactly 4. They came out and it was spread out to the land that he conquered was divided up amongst those 4. After the wars and battles and everything, it came down to those 4 heads. So heads can come out of the beast. Then you go to the 4th beast. Go to Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. That's the dreadful and terrible beast. Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. We're just in Daniel right now. What does 7 verse 7 say? Somebody read that.
Daniel 7:7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns.
What he saw, Daniel saw, he couldn't even identify it like a lion or a bear or a leopard. All he said was it was dreadful and a terrible beast. That's wrong. But at the end of that, what you just read, what came out of that? 10 horns. That wasn't a religious organization. That was 10 nations that came out. That was 10 statehoods that came out. That's modern. That was modern today, modern Europe that came out. See? It didn't have anything to do with religion. See, because from a religious standpoint, as time went on, Catholicism wanted to be that king of religion, right? So,
Hey, Brother Birch.
yes,
Is it though where he probably, what he saw probably was really what John saw in Daniel chapter 12?
I don't know. What do you
know,
think?
he saw the dragon,
Oh, I see what you say. Well, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. I don't know, because so you're saying but he didn't see the heads.
yeah.
He saw 10 horns, but he didn't see the heads.
Because the 7 heads in Revelation 12 got 10 horns.
Wait a minute, say this, is 7 heads what?
The 7 heads got 10 horns.
The 7 heads have, no, if I understood you right, you said the 7 heads have 10 horns, is that what he said? No. No.
Not that one. Let me see where I'll find it.
You saying the 7 heads have 10 horns. So the horns is coming out of the heads.
Yeah, when you go to Revelation 12:3, it says,
Okay.
Having 7 heads and 10 horns.
Okay, but
And
we got those 7. Okay, I think we're gonna get to that a little bit. But Revelation chapter 12, verse 3, that's those 7 heads and 10 horns. You see where it's coming from? What it says? It's coming out of what? What does it say it's coming out of? What is those 7 heads and what is those 7 heads and 10 horns? What is it tied in with? The great red dragon, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we were going to get to this, but since you brought that up, those 7 heads and 10 horns is not the same as the 7 heads and 10 horns of Revelation chapter 13:1. But it is the same as the ones in 17:3 that we talked about. Why? Because if you read chapter 12, where it says, behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head, right? Upon his head. When you go over to 17:3, it then say that the woman is sitting on a scarlet-colored beast that has 7 heads and 10 horns. So would not the scarlet-colored beast be the same as that red dragon? See? This is where the part of getting, this is where it becomes confusing at, if you think about it. It was always taught, not always taught, sometime I was thinking, is that in Revelation 17, the woman, and I think I was talking to you guys about this too, the woman was the Catholic Church, but the beast was the papacy. That can't be that. That don't make sense. So the woman is riding on top of herself. That wouldn't make sense. She'd be riding on the papacy. So it doesn't make any sense. Plus, we in the last, once you find out, and Eric mentioned it, he mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again. He mentioned what the 7 heads and the 10 horns were in chapter 13. But I'm going to mention it again eventually here so you can see that the 7 heads and the 10 horns in Revelation 13 is not in existence no more, except for the heads to a certain extent, but it's not. Let me not say it like that because that might be confusing. 7 heads, 10 horns, no longer in existence. It doesn't compare with 12 and 17 in Revelation. 12 and 17 are the same. The only thing different in 12 and 17, you notice at one time in 17 and 12 that you see that the heads have crowns, right? Then you look at 13, 1, you see that horns have crowns, right? A total different set. But then when you go to 17, you notice it says 7 heads and 10 horns, there are no crowns. You see no crowns, do you? But we'll eventually get into that. You see no crowns. Crowns are on the first set in chapter 12, but you don't find it in chapter 17, no crowns. No crowns at all. Wonder why. But anyway, we'll eventually talk about that a little bit too. So, Rich, the thing is, in chapter 12, verse 3, is different than what 13, 1 and 2 is, but it's the same as 17:3. Same heads. So when you come up with...
I say that,
Huh?
I say it because the fourth ruler going to rule all the way to the end. The papacy is along with the fourth beast.
Well, you got it. Well, you jumping ahead, but we're gonna get into some of that. The papacy is not the fourth beast, though. Papacy is not the fourth beast. The papacy is the 5th one. He's the 5th beast. And I'm going to show you why. We'll see. I don't think you'll know the day, though, but you'll know why the beast is who they are. Because the scriptures, watch this, everybody, the scriptures only gives us 7 beasts. 7. And we'll talk about who they are. We'll talk about who they are. You know what? I don't even want to jump the gun. I don't even want to just put it off. I'm going to get to it, but I'll go ahead and tell you what it is. I'll tell you. The scriptures tell us, we just read in Daniel chapter 7, verse 3, was it? We just read there 4 of the beasts. Right? 4 of the heads, 4 of the beasts. Babylon, Mede, Persia, Greece, and Rome. That's 4 beasts that came out of the sea, right? It makes sense that the 5th beast would probably, it don't have to come out of the sea, it could come somewhere else. But where is the 5th beast mentioned at in the scripture? Where's the 5th beast mentioned? We named 4 because that came out of Daniel. Now, where's the 5th one at? It started off, it's mentioned in Daniel, but it don't go into details of it. It don't call it a beast yet. It's the sea beast. That's the 5th beast. Watch this. What's the 6th beast? Huh? What's the 6th beast? Did you say earth? That's it. That's the 6th beast, is the earth beast. So then, here's the question. Who is the 7th beast? If you know, I'm going to give you a hint. If you notice in Revelation chapter 17, it never identifies anything about it don't say the dragon. You notice the dragon name is not used in 17? You notice it don't say devil in 17? However, we know that the woman is the Catholic system because verse 18 even tell you it sits on 7 hills. We already know that. So if the woman is the system of the religion part, then who is the beast? Who is the beast? Who is it? Not the Catholics. Catholics, did you say Catholic? They were the fifth beast, right? The sea beast. You already said the earth beast is the seventh beast. So who can the seventh one be? See, we're jumping the gun a little bit because the scriptures tell us that the seventh beast or this eighth beast that's coming is of the seven. See, we ain't got to that verse yet. The eighth beast is of the seven. So who is the seventh? Satan is not mentioned in chapter 17. The devil is not mentioned in chapter 17. The dragon is not mentioned in 17. So who could the beast be? The scarlet colored beast, which is identified in Revelation 12:3 as the red dragon, which according to Revelation 12:9 is Satan and the devil. The scarlet colored beast in Revelation 17:3 is the same as the red dragon in Revelation 12:3, and the dragon we know from Revelation 12:9 is Satan. So the beast of Revelation chapter 17 is the devil. He's the seventh beast. And you will find out even more about that as we go through this. As we get to some of those verses going down there around verse 8 and going further, we're going to find out. See, in time past, I always looked at that as being the papacy. That's not the papacy. Verse 8. That's not the papacy. The beast that was, is not, and yet is. That's not the papacy. But we'll get to those verses. That is the reason, Rich, that the papacy, that's the fifth beast, the sea beast. So, and I have it in one of these slides coming up, I think. So, 16. I'm going to give you 16 reasons. 16 reasons that I came up with is the reason why, from studying this, that the scarlet colored beast is what I call the title of this sermon, or the title of this message, this whole thing, is the hidden dragon. That's why I call it the hidden dragon. Because you don't see his name real right. Oh, you saw it in 13. I mean, you saw it in 12, didn't you? You saw it in 13. Right? You see it in 16. You see it in 17. I mean, you see it in 16 and 20, I meant, but you don't see it in 17. But it actually is there because it's the beast. He is the seventh head. He's the seventh head. He is the beast. Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, papal Rome, the sea beast, the earth beast, United States, the dragon, seventh one. Here's 16 reasons. 16 reasons. Actually, this is going to probably put us to the end of this here, pretty much. "16 reasons why Satan is the scarlet-colored beast." And I'm actually going to say some of these other verses. I hadn't going to say anything about it first. 16 reasons. Number one, the beast that come out of the sea in Revelation 13:1 is the same little horn in Daniel 7, 8, and 11. Therefore, the beast of Revelation 13:1 could not be the great red dragon in Revelation 12:3, nor could the dragon be the scarlet-colored beast at all, nor could the dragon be the scarlet-colored beast of Revelation 13:1. Okay? Neither can it, that can't be. So, Revelation 12:3 refers to the same entity in Revelation 17:3, which is the devil, the dragon. That's the first one. Second thing, with this state power. Slide 28, I'm calling it slide 20, this is 28. Look. If you notice, Satan or the dragon is not mentioned by name, and I mentioned this in Revelation 17, but he is mentioned in Revelation 12 and 13. That is because he is the beast of Revelation 17. It is Satan with the 10 horns that make war with the Lamb, because it is the 10 horns that represents some kind of state power. And that's not to say that the Jesuits is not going to be behind the scenes. Just like I mentioned earlier, they're behind the scenes dealing with everything. They caused these wars, these world wars and all this stuff they didn't cause. There's all kind of quotes. I think Eric put some of the quotes up, and I've had some long time ago. Quotes of people back during the revolutionary time, everything, that talked about the Jesuits and how dangerous they were. So we got to keep that in mind. Okay. Also, the 10 horns are attached to the beast in verse 3. So they are attached to that beast. Those horns are attached to the beast in verse 3, chapter 17, which means they represent some kind of state power and not a religious power. And they, as well, had to have some type of line of kings. Remember earlier I mentioned that the Babylonians ruled for 70 years. They had more than one king. The Mede-Persians ruled. They ruled for over 200 years. They had more than one king. They had a line of kings. You know, if you go over there to the book of Esther, Artaxerxes, Xerxes I, that was one of the kings. Cyrus, Darius, those are all Mede-Persian kings. So they had more than just one king. So this, I'm just letting you see, heads and kingdoms and beasts can be this. Heads and kings and horns can be the actual people, the actual names. That's why I put verses up here. If you go to over actually in Daniel chapter 2, you'll see that Daniel, he says, Nebuchadnezzar, you are the head of gold. That head was you, represented you. Then after you, there'll be other ones. They won't be as strong as you maybe, but they're going to be other ones. So he tells them already in the dream that there's going to be other ones that's going to come after you. And then it's just the definition of heads, kingdoms, beasts, kings, and horns. So, I don't know if the batteries. Hey, Eric. Oh. I don't know. Oh, there we go. State power. Here we go. Horns can represent kings. Then the 10 horns represent 10 kings. As mentioned in Revelation 17:12. Those 10 horns are 10 kings, it says. Daniel 7:8-25, the little horn emphasized state power, even though the little horn spoke great words against the Most High. See, in Daniel, it really, we know from studying that the little horn is the sea beast. But if you just read about the little horn, it says he spoke against the Most High. Well, Pharaoh said he didn't even believe in the Most High. So that wasn't the defining moment in Daniel to really tie him into a religion. We just know that now, so we automatically attach it to it because we know it. That's what it is. The little horn is really the same as the sea beast. When you get to Revelation 13, you start seeing like worshiping, words that ties into religion. You start to seeing that the world is wandering after the beast. The world worship the beast. That's where the word worship start coming in at. So you begin to see that in chapter 13. It's like I say, that's where we actually start to see more of that little horn, which is now the beast, being attached to worshiping. Even though we know the little horn is the same one. It's the same. The little horn and the sea beast, the same thing. Just didn't talk about worship until he got to Revelation 13. So, we're still identifying why the scarlet-colored beast is identified as the beast, as Satan himself. That's what we're looking at here. It says when we get to Revelation, well, let's go back. Daniel did not put much emphasis on religious power during Revelation 13. He didn't put a lot of emphasis on church power in the word worship, which is mentioned 4 times in 13, in Revelation 13. So when we get to Revelation 17, verses 9 to 12, we will discover who the heads and horns that is attached to the scarlet-colored beast are in this chapter. We know who the scarlet-colored beast is in chapter 17, and it is the devil. It's Satan. He is that beast, or the red dragon, according to Revelation 12:3. The devil, this is number 3, the devil or Lucifer, when he was in heaven, caused turmoil in heaven, as wanting to be like the Most High, according to Isaiah 14:12-14. Scriptures say iniquity was found in him, according to Ezekiel 28:14-15. So my question to you is this. When it is all said and done, when it's all finished, when we get to the point where Satan is appearing as an angel of light and all this kind of stuff, do you really think after all the stuff he did in heaven, he wanted to be like the Most High, he going to come down here and let the papacy shine, and he ain't going to come, say he's going to come as an angel of light? So the world is going to wonder after the papacy, but in essence is wondering after Satan. He's going to appear as an angel. The scriptures say he's going to appear as an angel of light. So he's going to come forth and show himself. We already know when it says, lo, he's over in the desert, or lo, he's over here, what we supposed to do? Not go. We don't care nothing about that anyway. Even when he actually appeared, we still don't care about that. That's what's so troublesome about when we read Daniel. We got to make sure we understand that at the very end of Daniel, it says that he's going to be setting up his tabernacle. We talked about that before in Daniel. I had a whole message on Daniel chapter 11. And it was talked about in other sermons as well. He's going to set up his tabernacle. He's going to set up his tabernacle over there. And it's going to be in the Holy Land over there. You want to call it Holy Land, the Kadesh land. You want to call it Kadesh land, it says glorious land. It's going to be over there in the glorious land, the scripture says, between the seas. Right? I think that was the, between the Mediterranean and the Jordan, is that right? Is it the Jordan area?
Oh, the Mediterranean.
You remember which one it was?
Dead Sea.
You did, what? Oh, the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea. Between the Dead Sea and Mediterranean. He's going to, which is Jerusalem and stuff in there. That's between there. So, I don't know. It's important that we understand. Satan uses the papacy, which is represented by the woman, to do his bidding, just like he gave power to the papacy, to use nations to do his bidding. Thus Satan leading out, and the 10 kings will be fighting against the Lamb and will be defeated according to Revelation 17:12-14. Number 4, the beast or papacy is not mentioned in Revelation 20. The beast or papacy is not mentioned in Revelation until verse 10, when he is destroyed with the dragon and false prophet. It is the dragon that is the 8th king of the 7 in Revelation 17 that continue for a short space and is mentioned in Revelation 20 as being bound and then loose for a little season. Satan they're talking about. He is the only one to fit the scenario as being the 8th king. It is of the 7 who is the 7th head, which makes sense. the beast that is, because he is the seventh king of Revelation 17. Beast represents a kingdom. Kingdoms have line of kings. Example, Daniel 2:38-40. I mentioned that before. See, Satan is the last of them all. He's the ultimate king of this wicked conglomerate. He's the last one. Very last one. He's the seventh head. He's the leader. The very last, and it makes sense for him to be the last one because it's going to end with him. It's going to end. Now, he's not going to be destroyed until when? Till after the 1,000 years. But what about the false prophet and the beast, the sea beast, and all of them? They will. They'll be thrown into a lake of fire. This thing, it all lines up, guys. It all lines up. I just don't know why the angel, why Satan will be coming as an angel of light, impersonating Yahushua, but he's just going to let the papacy get all the shine. He's been proudful all this time. That's the reason why he got kicked out of heaven. He wanted to be like the Most High. So he come down here, get all the way to the end, and then say, papacy, go with it. I don't believe that. That's why, again, I can understand why the scriptures say he's going to come as an angel of light, so he can showcase himself. Oh, he's trying to do that. He's trying to win it. And think about this for a second. What do you think would happen if you got people out here who have not been studying his word and understand all these things is going to happen? And when somebody said, oh my goodness, did you see that? Like, Yahushua has come back. I can see it now. People just flocking over there. Right? Or what do you think if Pope Francis come up out of the grave? See, I still believe that. I still believe. And someday when we talk in Revelation 13, going to get into why I believe that. How through study came up with that. That is pointed to Francis. Francis is dead. Yes. He's dead. But let me ask you a question. In Revelation 13, where it says that the earth beast is going to be performing all these miracles. Wouldn't it be something? What do you think would happen if Pope Francis raised from the dead? What do you think happened with this world? Think about it now for a second. When he was inaugurated, when he first came in as Pope, 2013, I think it was March of 2013. I think it was down there in Brazil, somewhere in South America, I think it was. It was so huge of a crowd there. That's when he first came in. They had to lay out a whole beach, and they had these big old telemonitors and stuff up, spaced out, and the whole beach looked like ants. They estimated over 4 million people were there. Now, can you imagine what would happen if all of a sudden he's identified? Pope Francis then came up. I just leave it like that. Because there's going to be more discussions and talk about that later on sometime. So, if you notice in 13:1, the beast is referenced as a beast coming out of the sea, and then proceeds with identifying the beast as a definite article as the beast. Throughout the remaining of chapter 13, it's mentioned 12 times after the first verse about the beast. We know the focus of Revelation 13 is the beast, the papacy, which we learn from Revelation 13 as the main character in this chapter. And we also know that this beast is not the devil, because the devil is referenced as the dragon. So we know it's not him. And he's the one who gave power to the beast, the sea beast. So using the same premise for Revelation chapter 17, the dragon or devil or any of his names are not used in this chapter that distinctly reference him. So who was the one that gave him power? Even in 17, He's riding upon a scarlet-colored beast. Who is that scarlet-colored beast? It's got to be Satan. Who else is it? It can't be, again, it can't be the papacy. He ain't riding on himself. That don't make sense. It has to be the one that gave him power in the first place, according to chapter 13. It's the one that gave him power. That's the one he's riding on. So therefore, the beast must be the dragon. He has to be the dragon, just like the beast was the papacy in Revelation 13. And the dragon was named in Revelation 13. Satan is identified as the beast in 17. So who is the apostate church under the rule of the papacy? Therefore, the beast of Revelation 13 is the papacy, which is the woman in Revelation 17. Then who would the beast be in Revelation 17? Again, without a doubt, it is Satan. That's who it is. That old serpent, the one called Satan, that is defined as the scarlet-colored beast. Just like in chapter 17, starts off by saying in verse 3 of chapter 17 that the woman was sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast. Keep in mind from from Revelation chapter 13, who will give the beast of chapter 13 his power? Revelation 17, we have a woman sitting on a scarlet-colored beast, and the scarlet-colored beast is then mentioned the remaining of the chapter 17 as the beast. 8 times. In the rest of the time, after it mentioned scarlet-colored beast, it then mentioned beast 8 more times. Again, a definite article, which the beast can only be Satan. By name, Satan is never mentioned in 17. Moving forward, number 7 example. Revelation 4:8 say, Revelation 4:8 say, which was and is to come. That's referring to Yahushua. Whereby in referring to the devil, it says the following. Revelation 17:8 says, the beast that saweth was, which is now. I see him now. It's the was period. And is not is the 1,000-year period. When he is not, he has no one to tempt because they're all dead, except the righteous is in heaven. That's the is not period. And shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. That's after the 1,000 years. It's lining up, guys. It also says in 17:8, that was, which is now, and is not, which is 1,000 years, and then it says, and yet is. Well, after the 1,000 years, he'd come back. He yet is, after the 1,000 years. It's lining up. Revelation 17:11. It says, the beast that was, still now, and is not, 1,000 years, even he is of the 8th, which is after the 1,000 years. Who is it coming out of the bottomless pit? Satan. If he's the 8th, that means he had to be back as part of the 7, which he was the 7th one. That makes sense. He couldn't have been the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, because time wasn't up yet for that. It wasn't up. He would never have been the 1st, because he's going to be the last one out of all of them. That's the finale of it all. That's the completion of it all. Not the 2nd or the 3rd beast or the 5th beast. He is the last one. That's why he is the 7th, and he's the 8th one, and he is of the 7th, because he's the 7th one. The beast that was, now, is not, 1,000 years, he's not going to be tempting anybody. Then after the 1,000 years is yet is. Or the one that says they're ascended out of the bottomless pit. Who ascends out of the bottomless pit? Satan. He ascends out of the bottomless pit, right? Revelation chapter 20. All you got to do is go to chapter 20. Came down and put the chain on him, figuratively. And he was bound for 1,000 years. Couldn't tempt anybody because all the unrighteous were dead. Until you get to verse 7, I think it is. When you get to Revelation chapter 20, and I think it's verse 7. Yeah. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loose out of his prison. Now he's going out tempting again. See, he's going out and start doing what he normally does when he had everybody down here. See, so again, Revelation 17 say that the beast that is sent out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, destruction. This beast must be the devil, because Revelation chapter 20 say that the angel came down and bound him for 1,000 years, cast him into the bottomless pit. Cast him into the bottomless pit, which means that was the is not period when he was in the bottomless pit. But that was prior to 1 Peter 5:8, which says that Satan is a roaring lion seeking who he can devour, which means he is now, right now. He's the was. He's what's going on right now. Satan, right now. He's the was. But when that chain is put upon him, figuratively, and he's not able to deceive anybody because ain't nobody to deceive, it's not. He no longer have no influence. Then when the 1,000 years is up, he will be loose out of his prison. And then he will go forth deceiving the nations again. The beast that was, is not, and yet is Satan. Is Satan. Revelation 17:8 compares to Revelation 20 verse 7. Revelation 17:8, when they go into perdition, compared to Revelation 20 verse 10, chapter 20:10, when they go into perdition. Revelation chapter 8 also agrees with Revelation chapter 20:15. Because what does 17:8 says? 17:8 says, whose names were written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. Well, verse 15 of chapter 20 says, whosoever name is not found written in the book of life. It's still talking about the book of life. It's still talking about the book of life. Still talking about the book of life. And then, like I mentioned before, Revelation 17:8. All this is in 17:8. These three things. Shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Revelation 20 verse 7 says, when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loose out of his prison. He's going to ascend out of the bottomless pit. Again, this is talking about Satan, no one else. Number 8, 17:10, in Revelation 17:10, the beast versus the woman. The horns hated the woman. They don't say it hated the beast. It said it hated the woman. Did not hate the beast. It didn't say anything about hating the beast. It said the woman. Who was the one that they burned? The beast or the woman? The woman. Satan is the beast, guys. Because he don't get his finale until after the 1,000 years is up. He will not be destroyed when Yahushua comes back, what we're waiting on. He's not going to be destroyed. He's going to have to suffer down here because he don't have anybody to tempt for 1,000 years. Then he will ascend up out of the bottomless pit. Then he will go forth. If he's going to go forth deceiving nations, that means the second resurrection has already happened. If he's going out to deceive the nation, that means the second resurrection had already just happened right before he did that. Boom. So, number 9, if you notice in Revelation 13:1, and this all we're doing here now is going through why the scarlet-colored beast is Satan, the devil. If you notice in Revelation 13:1 that upon the heads the name of blasphemy, which indicates the name of blasphemy is not on the horns or the body of the beast, just the heads. However, Revelation 17:3 mentions that this scarlet-colored beast is full of the names of blasphemy. This clearly indicates that this beast, through and through is made up of blasphemy. The Greek concordance word for name, literally or figuratively, authority or character, symbolizes an authoritative entity that, according to the Strong Concordance G988, means vilification, especially against Yah. When you talk about the blasphemy, especially against Yah. Blasphemy, evil speaking, railing. Here we have a great red dragon that we already discovered in Revelation 12:3 is the devil. Here we have the beast of Revelation 13:1, the papacy, who receives his power from him, from the devil. Now we have Revelation 17:3, a scarlet covered beast that is full of the name of blasphemy through and all over. And look what it says in Acts 13:10. Acts 13, I'll read it here. Acts 13:10. Acts 13:10 says, get to it here. Acts 13:10. And said, O full of all subtlety and all mischief, thou child of the devil, thou enemy of all righteousness, will thou not cease to pervert the right ways of Yahuwah? This is when Saul was dealing with the sorcerer and stuff. But he says here, child of the devil. That's what this papacy become. He's sitting on him. He's sitting on him. So, thus we find a woman of Roman Catholicism ran by the papacy, full of subtlety, which is craft, trickery, deceit, and all mischief, which is recklessness. She is the child of the devil, who she is sitting upon. Thus the scarlet-colored beast is the devil, full of the names of blasphemy. You know, I'm going to use a dad, for example. So if a dad is full of blasphemy, full of unrighteousness, full of wickedness, and he's bringing up his child, guess what? The child is riding on him. He's going to be the same. Right? He's going to be the same. Ain't going to be no different. If the child is riding on the dad, it'll be the same. Here the woman is riding on the beast, the one that gave him the power in the first place. It'd be the same thing with the child and dad. The power, the understanding that the child had is from the dad. You know, the names of the devil. You know, John 8:44 calls him a murderer and a father of lies. Matthew 4:1 just calls him the devil. Matthew 4:3 calls him the tempter. Matthew 9:34 calls him the prince of devils. Matthew 12:24, Beelzebub, which means dung god, prince of evil spirits, name of Satan. Matthew 13:19 calls him the wicked one. 1 Peter 5:8 calls him the adversary. Revelation 12:9 calls him the great dragon, the old serpent, devil, Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. Revelation 12:10 called him the accuser of Yah's people. His name is characterized as everything dark, everything wicked or bad. His main objective is to attack with only evil intent to destroy Yah, which he cannot do, and Yah's people, what he is trying to do. Number 10, if you would notice that the judgment of the great whore, the Roman Catholic Church, papacy, the beast, is what's being judged because it is thrown into a lake of fire. Into a lake of fire, which is Revelation 19:20, which I mentioned. This whore is the beast of Revelation 13:1. But if you notice, the beast is not mentioned as being judged in Revelation 17, just the woman. Because the beast, devil, final judgment comes when? After the 1,000 years. That's the reason why, another reason why this is the beast is Satan. Judgment don't come upon him till after the 1,000 years. That's when he gets thrown into the lake of fire. So prior to that, Revelation 19:20 tells me that the beast and the false prophet is thrown into a lake of fire. That's when we waiting on him to come back. That's fire they gonna be thrown. But the devil's not in there. See, because his punishment don't come to the end. Jude, the book of Jude tells you that anyway. The book of Jude says, I think it's verse 6. I think it's Jude verse 6. And the angels which kept not their first estate. What's their first estate? It was heaven. But left their own habitation, he have reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day for them. Their great day is not when Yahushua comes back. It's that next, after that 1,000 years when he comes back. Satan and his angels will be thrown into that lake of fire. It's gonna be, that whole thing will be horrifying, man. It's terrible. They brought it upon themselves. They brought it upon themselves. Number 11. If the woman represent the apostate church of Roman Catholicism with its leader, the Pope, then who is the beast? In this climatic drama that is about to unfold, would we not think that Satan would want to be in the forefront, especially knowing his time is on the brink of ending as far as its influence on people? And plus he is too pompous to let anyone else take the realm at a crucial point in this ending saga as it unfolds. Number 12. Revelation 12, 17, 16. If you notice, it mentions how the 10 horns turned against the whore, the papacy, and the system of Catholicism. It says that they hate her and shall make her desolate and naked and burn her with fire. This matches Revelation 18:8. That specifically refers to the apostate woman, to that church. That's who it refers to. So in addition, we know that the dragon will not be destroyed until the 1,000-year period is up. Therefore, if the woman represents the papacy, then the beast must be the dragon, has to be the dragon, which will not be destroyed again until the 1,000 years is up. Remember, we're continuing on reading all these here, what these are saying. Okay. In Revelation, this is number 13. In Revelation chapter 17, there's no destruction of the beast, but you find the 10 horns attacking the whore and burning her with fire, just like I mentioned before. Verse 17 reminds me the house Yah gave the 10, remember the 10 kingdoms he gave to Jeroboam? Over there in, I forgot what book that was in. It was in 1 Kings, I think it was? 1st or 2nd Kings? Remember he gave them 10 kings? Jeroboam, because Jeroboam and Rehoboam's story, Rehoboam didn't listen to the older people when they was trying to tell him not to put the burden on, take the burden off the back of Jeroboam, which your father put on him. Take it off of him, and he would serve you. He and his people would serve you. Well, he listened to the young people. He listened to them. And they told him, make the burden harder than what it was, make it worse than what it was. And that's what he did. And they ran off, and Yah gave Jeroboam 10 kingdoms. That's where the 10 kingdoms come from. The northern kingdom. And down at the bottom was the southern kingdom, Judah and Benjamin. That's how that kingdom thing came about. But even with that, what did Jeroboam do? I'll just make it short. Jeroboam created his own worship system. Instead of, where did they go to the temple? They went to Jerusalem or the temple. He set it up in Dan and Baal. Not Baal, and Bethel. Not only that, he set up priests, not of the Levitical system. He set up priests of anybody, basically. That's what he did. So Yah gave him this, and that's what he did with it. He said the reason why he set up Dan and Bethel for them to go there and honor there as the temple instead of Jerusalem, because in the mind, they may want to start turning back to Rehoboam. Pride thing, and boy, when you ain't doing the right thing, your mind's everywhere. That's all I can say. You ain't doing the right thing, your mind is everywhere. He's walking all over the place. Really is. So, number 14. The beast had 7 heads and 10 horns, with crowns on the horns, and upon the heads the name of blasphemy. Also, the beast had a leopard body. This is in Revelation 13. Leopard body, feet of a bear, mouth of a lion, which distinguishes this beast different from the scarlet-colored beast. Look now, look what it says. It described the beast in verse 2. That's different than a scarlet-colored beast, or different from a red dragon. He described it. It had characteristics of the beast over in Daniel chapter 7. You know, the lion, the bear, and the leopard. Flipped around. It had the body of a leopard, mouth of a lion, and feet of a bear. It took on the characteristics of that one over there. So they can't be the same as the 12 and 17 of Revelation. Total different character. Total different makeup. So that's another one. That's number 14. Number 15. The context of Revelation 17:8 makes one wonder that the names that were not found written in the book of life from the foundation of the world could only apply to Satan, since he existed from the beginning. Listen, when it says, go to 17:8 for a minute. Let's go to 17:8 for a second. And it says, the beast that saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder whose name were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. When they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is, the papacy wasn't from the foundation. It wasn't from the beginning. Papacy didn't always exist. Who's been here all this time from the foundation? Satan. Ever since the garden, he's been there. So we know that that beast is talking about Satan, the dragon, the devil. It's not talking about the papacy. The papacy didn't come in existence until 538 AD as a power, as a beast. So this is not taught by any world ruler. That's the reason why when I thought about it some more, I just thought about it here, us talking here now. When it says was, that's why it says was, and it doesn't say now. Because if it said now, it make it seem like it wasn't before. Was means it's always been here. It's been here since sin came into the world. It was, is now. It's always been here. So in other words, 500 years ago, it was there. That was the now then. 2,000 years ago, that was the now. That beast still existed. Satan has been here from the beginning. He's always been here from way back in the beginning. When sin, iniquity was found in him, heaven, he was kicked out, and he caused his torment down here in that garden. He's been here. Satan has been here all that time. From the beginning, he's been here. He's been here since the beginning. That's another reason why we know that the beast is Satan. It's another reason. Last one, final reason. The beast of Revelation 17 is the devil, because the first 5 beasts that we mentioned, Babylon, Mede, Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, paper Rome, is out of the sea. The 6th beast is out of the earth. And what I mentioned earlier, the beast of Revelation 17 is neither out of the sea, representing people, nor earth, representing a solid part of the whole land of this world. He wasn't out of the sea, and he wasn't out of the land, because he originally was an angel. Fallen angel. Yeah, that's the beast now. The scripture said he was an anointed cherub in Ezekiel 28, 13 to 15. He was an anointed cherubim until iniquity was found in him. And he was cast out, according to Revelation 12, 7 and 9. He was cast out because he had a war against, he and his angels fought against Michael, which is Yahushua and his angel, and they lost, of course, and got cast out of heaven. They got cast out. Revelation 17 don't even give you a clue where the beast is from. It don't say sea beast because we know sea beasts mean out of people. It don't say earth beast because we know that means like uninhabited type areas. They're not inhabited a lot of people. It don't call it earth or sea. All the other beasts are either earth or sea. This one here, there's no name to it, but just beast. Because it wasn't from the earth and it wasn't from the sea, but it was an angel originally. And he's still an angel, but he was a fallen angel. So the scriptures tell us that the devil has many counterfeits. So this woman was given power from the dragon. She is the same as the sea beast in Revelation 13:1. So when we speak of a woman, it is the devil who is the beast of 17 that she is riding on. So I'm going to end this part with that, and I'm going to get to other parts starting tomorrow. I think I done at 6:30. I think it is 6:30. It's separate. We only got we still not through all the verses here. Well, verse 3 rather. I got more things to talk about verse 3. But I hope everybody understands. Rich, I hope you all can get a picture now of where we're at now with this beast and who we're dealing with here. Yeah, we got the papacy. Yeah, that's the woman. Yeah. But the beast of Revelation chapter 17, none other but the devil. The dragon. The scarlet colored beast. The red dragon. Scarlet, red. Scarlet is red, right? That's the scarlet colored beast. Same one. 17 and 12. 17 and 12. So, if nobody has any other questions or anything, we can close it up. And I'm glad we was able to get to 3 because I think it has to be established who the beast is. We got to know who he is. Now, moving forward, whenever you see beast, you know we're talking about Satan. We know we're talking about, that's who we're talking about. We also know that he is not the one that's being burned. He's not the one they're attacking. He's attacking a woman, which makes sense. Because Satan is not going anywhere yet until after the 1,000 years. It's just too many identifying marks to let us know who the beast is. So in saying all that, let us stand and have closing prayer. If there's no questions or comments or anything. Okay. Father in heaven, we come before you this day again. We thank you for your grace, for your mercy and love. We pray, Father, that you be with us and help us as we continue our own individual studies, that as we study and the Ruach guides us and lead us to all truth, that we all will be all in one thought and one pattern of a walk with you, just like you tell us over in John 17. We thank you so much, and we give you all the praise. We thank you for the people that have attended and the people that's been listening and all the time that we have spent this day on your word. We thank you and we give you all the praise in your son's name. Yahushua, we do pray. So be it. So be it.